For a while now I've been on the lookout for a mini camera that can beat the quality of the DVK808 keyring cam. Now you've got to get the right version of this camera. It's version number 3 and you'll see more details of that on Chuck Law's website. This camera isn't exactly perfect though. The controls are difficult to understand and operate, and more importantly that lens on the front has a very narrow angle of view. So in an attempt to improve upon the DVK808 I picked up this model. It's the efun DV100 that's also known as the 5-in-1 camera. It was from eBay from a seller in China, the details of which are in the video notes. On the front there is the lens and below that's the microphone, and the important bit is on the back here. They've separated out the controls, so the camera control is on the left for taking photos. In the middle you press it to just record voice, and on the right it's to start and stop the video. And above that is a delete button which deletes the last video you've just taken. And on the right here, if you flip this up, there's the little lens that you can look through that should give you an approximate idea of what you're actually going to be filming. And on the side here is a proper on-off switch that's a slider. There's a USB in the bottom there, and just above that it's got a spring-mounted SD card slot, which is actually a full-size SD card slot. And it will support up to a 32GB SDHC card. 1GB takes 40 minutes of video at 640 by 480 at 20 frames a second. So let's see what that looks like on this scene in Manchester. This is Exchange Square, and this is how it looks through my Sony TG3 camera with a wide-angle lens on it. And here's what it looks like through the plastic lens on the top of the DV100, so that should help me frame the scene. So let's see what that actually looks like through the camera. Right, this is the footage from the DV100 itself, and the first thing that you spot is that I'm pointing the camera a little bit skyward, which indicates that that little plastic viewfinder isn't really all that much use for helping you frame the image. And the second thing that you can see is that the colours are a little bit bleached out, and there's a bit of a yellowish tinge to the whole image. So let's try a different angle and see what that looks like. Right, so I'll attempt to frame Manchester's big wheel in the lens, and we'll see how that looks through the actual camera itself. So here it is turning around, pointing towards the big wheel, and you'll notice that it's a little bit down and to the left. There's also quite a bit of wobble on the CMOS sensor there when I moved it around, and you'll notice that it's still quite a bit bleached out, and it doesn't seem to handle light and dark particularly well, but it's okay. So let's compare it next to the DVK808 and see what that footage looks like. So here we are again, this is the DV100. Now keep close attention to what you can see on the left and right of the picture here. You can see the pub on the left with the sign and a bit of the big wheel on the right. So now we'll flip over to the DVK808 and see what that can see. Now you notice it's zoomed in quite a lot into the middle, so you can see the pub on the left again, but the wheel's missing from the right. Although the colours are a lot better, and the image itself seems sharper and the movement is quite a bit smoother, but that's because it's 30 frames per second rather than the 20 frames per second of the DV100. If we just freeze it here, look at what you can see again. That's the wider angle of the DV100, and then we'll pop back to the DVK808. So on this outdoors test, the keyring cam wins for having the best picture quality, but the DV100 wins for having the widest angle of view. The next test is indoors whilst walking. So here we are inside Tesco. This is the keyring camera, and the first thing that you'll see from this is that the footage has a yellow tint to it. The movement is quite smooth, especially considering the size of the camera, and doesn't break up too badly. So we'll look at the DV100. Now you'll notice the first thing about this one is that the colour palette is much more accurate. But you'll also notice that there's more flickering and the image is more prone to breaking up whilst moving. So we'll try the two cameras on a still image. Here we are looking at some shells with the DV100. Look how much you can see. And then we're on to the keyring camera. It's much more zoomed up, but it's yellow again. So I think the DV100 just about edges it on the indoor footage. So overall, this is quite a good camera. The way that they've separated all the buttons out on the back is very smart and makes it a lot easier to use. Having a separate on-off switch on the side means that there's no ambiguity as to whether you've got the thing powered on or off. And also, that lens on the front has a nice wide angle. But there are of course quite a few negatives about the camera too. That viewfinder is pretty much useless. and I noticed when copying files across, the USB connection just seems to be USB 1, so you're much better off taking the memory card out of the camera, putting it in a separate card reader and attaching it to your PC that way. So to sum up, the DV100 is a pretty good camera, although in comparison to a flip style camera it's not that much smaller and the image quality is certainly nowhere near as good. However, it does only cost £16, and that puts it in the same price range as a DVK808, and you've got to make your own mind up on which one of those you prefer. Thanks for watching.